A wild mistake. Amtrak is the largest passenger railroad in the United States. It goes to 9 cities in Canada and others in the United States. And they use long-distance passenger cars to wherever they need to go to be really useful indeed. Women trains are also really useful because they haul gender products for the space stations so the astronauts can take them to other planets that are hospitable to life. And this is why trains are really useful indeed to whatever job they have to do. The only year-round train on Cape Cod, Massachusetts is the trash train. The trash train is owned by the Cape Cod Central Railroad, and the locomotives have to bring them to Rochester, Massachusetts because it's very expensive for the garbage trucks to take it there on their own. And this is why they're really useful indeed. Amtrak does a good job with its passenger service, and they pull passengers year-round to wherever they need to go to be really useful indeed. They can use single-decker cars, double-decker cars, or sometimes tri-level cars that are used on special railroads that don't have bridges. And this is why they're really useful indeed. One early afternoon, Carla was bringing the Heritage Flyer to the last station stop. She had to come into Capitol Station to shunt the coaches into the siding. After I drop off these train cars, Carla said, I should shunt the coaches over to Sasha at Woonsinghalf Union Station. And she steamed backwards into the siding and came to a stop. And she came to a crawl. And she went over to the Superliner, Viewliner, and Amfleet cars from Amtrak. And she pushed them around the corner. I enjoy doing work like this, Carla said, because really useful engines like me are always really useful with Mr. Cakester. She was feeling pleased with herself while the train cars went along. I'm adjacent to the last Superliner car. And she steamed down the line with all of her train cars in front while she did a good job. Then there was trouble. When Carla went down the hill, her safety valve burst. Bust my buffers, gasped Carla. I burst my valve! Help! She tried to put on her brakes, but the train went faster and faster. Whee! the crew members. This is fun! My brakes are broken! And so is my safety valve! Carla yelled. Uncouple my train, please! She cried. Her driver uncoupled the first Superliner car in front of her, and she swerved into the siding into a pair of buffers, and the train went faster and faster. We can't stop! Cried the crew members. We're out of control! The cars were at the station and they waved to the runaway cars as they went by. I wouldn't want to be on a train like this again, one conductor said. We're going way too fast. And then out on the bridge, the woman looked out and saw the whole thing way ahead. We're out of control! Cried the crew members. Help us, please! And they sped through the tunnel. It's out of control! They cried. They rolled along the coastline with no engine. Sasha was on her way to the station. My coaches are gone! She said firmly. And they were rolling right behind her. And the coaches carefully bumped Sasha. I got them, said Sasha. And she pulled into the Union Station just in time, and she bumped the buffers. Mr. Cakester was very proud. Great work, Sasha, Mr. Cakester said. I'm glad you're on time with your express. Thank you, sir, Sasha said proudly. The next day, Mr. Cakester arrived to see Layla and Cheyenne. Today, you two, Mr. Cakester said, I would like both of you to collect a train of 113 cars. That's a lot of cars, sir, Layla and Cheyenne said at the same time. And they steamed off to the shunting yard. Here we go, said Layla. Of course we are, said Cheyenne. Before long, they were getting refueled at the mining company. And they steamed off to the shunting yard. Let's go collect our cars, said Cheyenne. And they pulled the train out of the siding. And they steamed onto the main line. It feels good to pull freight cars like this, said Layla. Because we're really useful woman engines. They were happy with themselves. I hope we don't have a landlocked catastrophe, they said at the same time. And the freight cars rolled along the line. There were lots of cars. And they were colorful and lovely. And the train went along the line while it was being really useful indeed. There were mail cars and hopper cars in the rear, and the brake van rolled along. Meanwhile, the Amtrak Cardinal number 50 was on its way to New York City from the big station, and they rolled along the line while the two engines made their way along onto the Northeast Corridor. This goes to the existing Florida, said Cheyenne, because it's hot. And over at the station, the Amtrak Cardinal sounded the horn, and it was approaching the station. And it went fast down the corridor. And it rocketed right through. Then there was trouble. Lancey was pulling the weekday limited while she was doing a good job with her business. And Layla and Cheyenne were on the same line. They were on a collision course. There's going to be a head-on collision! Yelled Layla. Her driver slammed on the emergency brakes and so did Layla, but it was too late! Luckily, no one was hurt, but the train cars in the rear stayed on the tracks, but Layla and Cheyenne were partly derailed. Oh my goodness, I'm crumpled, said Lancey. Layla's bogies had bounced on the ties, and the Amtrak Silver Star was coming from Miami, and it had lots of Amfleet cars, while the train came to a stop. The Amtrak came to see the derailed Layla, who was sitting on the sleepers, and the brake van stayed on the tracks. Before long, the passengers were on board, and the Amtrak roared off to Penn Station in New York City. We did a good job said Layla, because it's good to own up to our head-on collision. Of course it is, Lancey said. Head-on collisions can happen on roads, air, or water. And the Silver Star hummed away. The next day, Layla and Cheyenne were repaired and Becky was very proud of them. Thanks for helping, Becky, said Layla. You're most welcome, said Becky. Anytime I feel like it, I'm really useful. Maybe it's best just to stay on track and not race trains for a while, Cheyenne said. That's a good idea, said Layla. We can do it once in a while. And they steamed into the sunset.